I'm here today at a local pond that I like to hang out at. I find actually a lot of calm and a lot of inspiration anytime I come here. I'm always impressed by the level of biodiversity that's so condensed in such a small space. Part of the reason for that may be because I live in an area that doesn't have a lot of natural space. There's a lot of development around it. So maybe that's the reason why it feels like there's such a concentration of life around this pond. But every time I come here, I find something new. And I just think it's so interesting, the level of nuance that life really can have. Just how many species of organism live on or within this rock, amongst all these rocks. Even just that alone, I find just fascinating. Who knows how many microorganisms live in a drop of water here. And I find any time in nature to be very productive. But I think it is definitely inspirational for any of the art that I do and the creativity that I do. It reminds me that, in a humble way, that honestly no human mind or computer would ever be able to model this. The universe, nature, everything. It's so unique. It's so much time is needed for it all to form. So a big part of what inspires me is mostly through genuine observation. So I like to just sit and meditate and relax and watch life kind of just go by. I try to, for all intents and purposes, I try to be, like a stick in the mud, like a fly on the wall, so to speak, and just try to not invade so much. I try to really distance myself, whether it be, you know, at a park or anytime I've gone on vacation like here, observing different environments, like actually just relaxing and trying myself to not be so invasive, trying not to interact too much with the environment, or at least if I am going to interact with it in a way that's not going to be detrimental to how it flows, how it interacts with itself. And I think a lot of times too, I try to, whatever I can, I try to also just observe like my own animals. So I have a cat, I have two leopard spotted geckos, and I have quite a few fish. And I find them also very inspiring because even when these animals are like contained, even if you have pets, at the end of the day, they're still going to behave by their nature. I think humans are like that too. We're domesticated in a way, but it's just beautiful to just like watch things exist, how they interact with the environment, how they learn, how they interact with each other. And I find a lot of inspiration just from that alone as well. But primarily when I'm creating, I use these programs here. I use GarageBand for any of the music stuff. I use Bing for the AI images. I use iMovie for all my editing, and then I use just this random bazaar for the Photoshop. The Photoshop stuff I'm still learning. I just like being able to do everything on my phone because it's very convenient for me, and I find it very relaxing. So sometimes I'll have something on TV like a nature documentary, or I'll have some like music on, or if I'm kind of overstimulated for the day, I just like have nothing on and I just erase or draw, and most of the time it's actually just placing creatures into an environment. I'm trying to like blend that. I'm sure some of them don't come out that great. I'm very amateur. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to act like I'm a professional in any way. But I feel like this, at least, whether I post it or not, it definitely helps me to kind of imagine further what I have in my mind. And I use a lot of these images sometimes in slideshows to help me with making the music as well. So I try to touch my music at least once a day, at least every other day. Um, Even if it's just playing around with a melody or playing around with some type of theme or idea, whether it be for a planet, or I try to think of the spaces between worlds also. Like, what would it be like? What would it sound like to be in a spaceship in terms of music? Or what would it be like to navigate through the asteroids in the rings of a gas giant? Or what would it be like to fly an aircraft in a thick atmosphere of an alien world and look down on the landscape below? So I try to have my music at least encapsulate that, kind of like the sci-fi vibe, and I kind of just take it from there. So my girlfriend actually bought an electric piano, and only recently have I tried playing around with it a lot more. I have some basic understanding of music, so playing around with an actual physical instrument is also super cool because you can only do so much on a phone, and when you're playing on a screen, it's definitely a different feeling. So having like a physical instrument has also been really fun. Just kind of playing around with potential ideas and themes and things like that. Um, that's also been super cool in terms of like studying and experimentation. And my cat definitely loves she definitely loves sitting there and listening to the process. And I definitely make mistakes and play around, and I definitely make a lot of things and then kind of delete them or rewrite them. And I think that's a big part of the creative process, is creating and honestly destroying. I think destruction, when done with intention, is also a form of creation, because nothing is destroyed or created, right? It's only renewed. And I'm like that also with a lot of the visuals and a lot of the ideas and things with the planets. I've had a lot of ideas that I've kind of like cut out because it didn't really make sense, or I felt like there wasn't really a place for it. My imagination, kind of got too wild, and I'm not able to rationally explain it, so I felt like it had no place. But at the same time, I feel like it's good to sometimes just have an idea, go with it, and kind of say, forget about logic and forget about continuity, because sometimes just being creative and imaginative is fun for the sake of having fun. And if you try to put your creativity into a box, you're only ever going to have, at best, a heavy box, so I'd rather try to deconstruct that whenever I can. So recently, the Bing AI that I've been using has allowed me to start making videos, which I think are pretty cool, considering that it's free. That's kind of the biggest reason I use it, because it's free. Um, which has definitely added, I think, an element to it. I like to use the videos more so for like shorts and things like that. I still haven't decided how I want to incorporate that type of medium into the overall presentation on the channel and for the project. But I think it's interesting, like trying to make the images that I've made like a year or so ago into something that moves. I think definitely then it's something for me to consider. It makes me feel more lived, right? It makes it feel more like realistic, even though I know very much it's fake, right? And I know it's a computer, so I'm not animating it, but even still, it's like interesting seeing like worms move, or like lizard like creatures crawl. I think is really cool, and adds a layer of, at least for myself, a layer of something more to take inspiration from when I'm thinking of like how does this world feel? How does it smell? What is the humidity, right? Like what does it sound like if you were to be there when you're walking, or is there like the crunch of like leaves, right? Or like, are plants crunching? Is it all soft? Is it rough? Is it poisonous? So I think it's interesting trying to use these different mediums, because at least for me it helps with like adding the audio, visual, tactile experience to it. The last thing I'll highlight in regards to the ongoing immersive aspect of the project is the animal sounds. So I've recently gone into like the idea of like soundscapes and the idea of creating that atmosphere in an audio way. Like, what would these environments sound like? What kind of sounds or songs and calls and things would these creatures have? And so, what I've done actually is just I kind of I take directly from nature, because honestly, nature's the best inspiration and nothing can beat it. Mother Nature is Mother Nature for a reason. And I go, I'll go online and look up sounds from creatures that I'm familiar with, or sounds from creatures that I have never heard before. And I'll change the tempo, like the cadence, the timbre. I'll change the octave that it's in to create like a more unique sound. And then I'll layer those. Try to pace it correctly so it feels more naturalistic. And I find that too is like actually really relaxing as well. I have a lot of fun with that, and it's something that I'm still learning to do. So that's like the most recent thing. So trying to add these videos, adding the audio is definitely something that's new to the project that I'm really excited to continue to explore. But again, I'm not sure to what degree I'll incorporate it into the overall presentation of everything, but it's definitely something I get super into, and it's something I feel like other people enjoy. So I like doing it. So yeah, that's kind of the behind the scenes on how I make stuff. If you guys enjoy this, I can make maybe like a more in depth one with maybe with more detail and things like that, or I can do like a step by step process. But I just wanted to do kind of like a general overview, let you guys know, um, kind of like what my inspiration is, my basic process. I try to create a little bit all the time though. So I try to, it's generating images or doing some kind of like Photoshop stuff, visuals, or making music, doing the, animal calls, things like that. So I try to always be active in it. So at least once a day, I'm like thinking about my project, but just because of life, life gets busy, so it's kind of hard to create like a fixed structure to put out content for the project. So I'm still kind of learning like that work, life, art kind of balance. Um, but I've recently switched actually back to having like a day job, not working overnight anymore. So I'm hoping to have more time to put out more content and get more in depth on the project, because there's still a lot of things that I have, you know, cooking, I guess in general, just like multiple things, slowly but surely like developing. And so, I'm hoping just to get more time to really focus, dig in, and put things out for you guys to enjoy. But definitely, if there's anything you guys want to know or questions, or there's anything in particular you like, definitely let me know. And otherwise, definitely just keep creating, exploring, stay curious. Just make sure you give yourself that time to be artistic and imaginative, because at the end of the day, we aren't machines. And at the end of the day, it's that's really what separates us from the other parts of nature, is that we have the ability to consciously create. So just keep exploring, keeping imaginative, be kind to yourself and others, and stay well.